I will start while we're checking in on the questions. Gillian, what directed at you, Gillian? What inspired you to work with your teenagers, with your clients through WhatsApp? Was it just like an idea and then it worked, or I would love to hear how you came about, how that came about.
So what's really ironic here is that I'm not a massive user or fan of social media, but I suppose I recognised that this was the platform that they used and was accessible. And I think that's really important because the pandemic has highlighted a lot of inequalities, particularly with learning disabled adults who may be digitally excluded, may not be able to use the technology that others can, may not be able to access the guidance that's sent out by the government. And so I think it was really important for us to choose a platform that they would be comfortable with, and didn't require a whole new set of learning. And I'm pleased to say that that happened. And in this case, it's me that's had to adapt to that new space.
Sorry, I'm muted there. Thank you, Gillian. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those considerations, isn't it, that we all feel like we're used to using all of these digital platforms, and wouldn't it be easy to continue and take some kind of real life activity and translate it online? But we don't consider people's needs in terms of communication and learning, and I think that is just so innovative of you, and to take it into a means that people are familiar with, and to be able to transfer like the wealth of the experience into WhatsApp, because WhatsApp can seem so like one dimensional even, and to get that kind of wealth of connection between everyone, and it's really, really inspiring.
I have to sometimes question whether it is actually a credible form of art therapy, because it hasn't been done before. But I did write up an article in December, and I'm really pleased to say that it's been kind of accepted as quite a credible form of art therapy. So yeah.
Yeah, it brings up a really a good question. Is or a question for me? Is that a consideration? Is this credible as art therapy? I never really considered that. But
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of different forms of art therapy, different models, different approaches. I'm a lot more flexible in my approach, and I think that is probably directed from my clients, because I have to offer that flexibility in order to meet their needs. Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure it would be criticised by others, and definitely there are questions around safety, confidentiality. So there are complexities that need to be considered. But for me, there wasn't really an alternative. So, yeah.
that's incredible, like innovation in terms of you and your work. Thank you, Gillian. We have a question come for Nikki to Lisa. Do you use any special paper, Lisa? What are your
Yeah, I'll try. I managed to ask a question to Gillian and answer that in the same kind of text message there. But I use a small grain paper, like the aquarelle kind of, that can brings up water a bit, but it hasn't. I don't like when it's kind of too much of a texture on it. So I try to find that. It's really hard to find actually, because most of them are kind of done in some kind of texture. So I use that, and I don't have kind of any label that I prefer. I just look at the paper and see if I like it. It's usually kind of heavy, 200 grams, I guess. And then if I do ink work, I usually use anything, but I can really recommend, if you live in Sweden, there's a place called Tiger, like a really cheap store where you can buy cheap stuff. And I buy these books that are kind of square books, like this size, and they have a really good quality of paper. It's white paper. They cost about 20 or 30 Swedish crowns, and I use them daily. So when I sit and have a meeting, I draw stuff like this, for instance. And yeah, so I have like a collection of 50 or hundreds of these. I write the name of the store down here.
Thank you so much. I'm kind of greedy now because I'm going to ask you a question. It kind of what brought you to starting to do this? Like, did you always draw? I mean, in terms of this expression, or what my
Yeah,
understanding is.
actually, I always drew. I started when I was little, and I always drew. I'm horse crazy, so I always drew horses. That's the only thing I did. And then kind of I stopped doing it because every time I tried to do something that looked like my view on art, like what you see in museums and that kind of thing, is a lot of portraits, a lot of things like that. It didn't look at all like it did in my head. So I think I got too much pressure out of it, and I stopped. And then I started architecture school, and in architecture school you have to do kind of a few assignments. We did croquis, for instance, where you drew live people with charcoal and that kind of thing. And it was a bit more messy. And I think I kind of brought it up a bit more then. And then around 10, 12 years ago, I lived in China, and I started working as an architect then. And I had such slow connections on my drawing programs at work. So I started doing this kind of thing where I have a book in front of me and I start drawing on it. And I kind of enjoyed that a lot, and continued kind of with a little blog, and I put them up and that kind of thing. And then I did another post when I went back to Sweden. And a few years back, I started to I kind of noticed that I did this kind of drawings. Like I have so many books of these kind of things. And I did this kind of promise, the promise to myself with the Instagram account was more that I should start doing them on proper paper or proper canvas or something like that, and that I should finish them. Because usually I do a little bit like the cat I show you, it's half finished and then I leave it, and I did because it's more, if I drew something that it's more kind of the idea. So I do that now. I try to finish things and put them up. And then I think in the beginning it was all to be kind of easy accessible. So I use kind of micron pens, like architecture drawing pens, and fill them in. And then the more kind of space that the art could kind of take in my life, I started to experiment more with the colors and that kind of thing. So I found this ink that I really like and I work with.
So cool. Guys, if anyone hasn't been on to Lisa's Instagram, you need to get over there. It's really, really addictive viewing, and yeah, I feel so much from your art and what you create. And I feel like saying to all three of you, thank you for doing what you do. I think it really helps all of us to engage with the parts of us that we need to engage with, I think. And like each of our speakers, my perspective, I think each of our speakers today is so different in their approach to creativity, yet that's the magic. I really personally feel. Lalisa, can I ask you a question? I feel like I teach yoga, I do yoga, all that kind of those things, and I think many of us do and have yoga in our lives, but my personal opinion is that you have something different in terms of your connection to yoga and how you embody it. I think that it's just like it seems to like pulse within you the values and virtues of yoga, and I would love to know how that came into your life, or did you choose it? Do you feel like that has always been part of you, and say yoga gave you a mechanism to translate it? I would love to just hear from you and how you engaged with the world of yoga, for example.
For sure. Yoga came to me when I was 18 years old, so it's 15 years ago. And I just delivered my son. And I was stepping into understanding what life is really about, to have something to teach my child. So yoga was a gift. And for me, the yoga is not about doing yoga. It's letting yoga do you. So it's all the different paths of yoga and realizing how you're weaving this into your everyday life. It's more what it's about for me. I got a question here. I see myself in the box. My pictures are from one of my graduations. I have a few ones, and this particular ones is exactly 1 year ago in my ashram in India. And it was this moment of celebrating life and all its colors.
I think you could really feel that from the imagery. And then the poem, I was actually going to ask you if you would be able to share that with us. It was so beautiful. And yeah, it was like 7 minutes of pure therapy. And it was really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, we have probably time for one or two questions. So please, are there any in the chat? I haven't been able to follow completely. Guys, just shout them out if there are. If you have any questions for Lalita, Lisa, or Gillian. And also the link to the Miro board. So you'll have the contact details for Lisa, Lalita, and Gillian in there. So if you guys want, please connect with them afterwards.
I have a question for Gillian.
Yeah, great.
Gillian, do you kind of when they choose kind of the media that they work with, do they choose it yourself, like, or do you work in kind of themes that this week we try the ink pen or something like that? How does that work?
So I just replied to you in the chat, actually.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. So the approach I take is normally non-directive. So the clients choose the materials and they choose how they use them. So I tend not to offer themes, but I do often identify themes in their work, because quite often there might be unconscious things that are expressed. So if I see any connections, or if I can identify a theme within the group, I might verbalize that, and that may change their process. Not always, but interestingly, since we've moved to online, I have to send the materials out to the group, and it feels like I'm controlling that a little bit more because I'm selecting the materials. So that's a bit of a challenge, because definitely the move online and me selecting the artworks, there might be an element of the clients trying to please me. So I have to kind of look out for that and encourage them to kind of ask if there's materials that they specifically want or need. But that can be difficult. So yeah, it definitely has changed the dynamic. Yeah.
I see a question in there for Lalita. Lalita, have you always been so calm and zen? Or did you used to be like tearing up, flipping?
I believe I'm a little bit of everything, and that's allowed to embrace, but I tend to choose the calmness inside in every moment. I feel good here in the calmness. And let the world happen around me and just stay in the calmness. Yes. So yes and no.
I have another question. Which of the types of yoga that you practice and share with others do you feel the deepest connection to?
Definitely Kundalini. I'm trained in Tantric Kundalini. So it's deep rooted in the Himalaya, in the mountain. And it comes from feminine powers. It comes from the mothers in the homes and the women who was not allowed to the ashram or even to the temple sometimes. And this is pure energy work with full conscious of your own bodies, your own 5 different koshas. So this is the one for me. It was a big one. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally relate to you on that, and I think for many of us who dip our toes in yoga, it's like a different yoga. It's not what you think. It's not about tree pose or all these different things. It's very different, and I've only really engaged recently with understanding that most yoga that we do in the West, or even when we go to India, it comes from kind of male lineages. Even structurally, it's when we're given cues, it's for a male body, and then it's interesting what you say, that Kundalini was like women in the homes, and they weren't given access to ashrams and these places which were the preserve of men. I suppose that maybe makes it everybody's yoga, not just women's yoga, but
And everything is yoga. Everyone
right.
do yoga. Everything is yoga if you do it with the presence. If you enjoy it while you're doing it, it's definitely yoga.
Guys, thank you so much for joining. We are at the end of our event. They always go so quickly. Thank you to everyone for having patience, particularly our speakers as well. Sorry for those blocks that came up on your presentations, all the effort and energy that you put in, and then this thing comes up. I have no idea where that is on my screen. So thank you guys for going with the flow and living yoga this morning, living and breathing yoga. A reminder to our audience to connect with each of our incredible speakers. We have all the details there in the Miro board. Thank you to our audience, to our community, for joining. This was a special event for us because it was you, our community, that came to speak. Next month, our theme is Divergent, and we have a mind blower, I have been told, a mind blower of a talk coming up. I think Ralph is there giving us a little wave. So we're going to welcome Ralph next month on the 19th. So please join us then. We will be online, virtual. Yes, and we will share everybody's details again, our speakers' details again afterwards, and that little treat that we have for you guys from Skillshare. So wishing you the most incredible rest of your day, hoping that you got loads of inspiration from this morning. I feel just supercharged. Yeah, thank you so much, and we will see you guys very, very soon.
Thank you.
Bye.